Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Incarnate and disincarnate. Good morning. Welcome to our Bezerra de Menezes home in Doral, Florida, sunny Doral, Florida. Today is October 20th, and we would like to remind people that Bezerra de Menezes is a 501c3, which means that we are nonprofit. We work strictly on donations. Nobody here receives any type of remuneration. Our blessings come from above, thank God. Our mission is to study Spiritism and to promote the practice of spiritual and material charity. Should you like additional information, you're welcome to call 305-477-4148. You can go to our website, www.spiritist.com, or send an email to info@spiritist.com. We do transmit live on YouTube at 10 and 11:30, so we ask that you kindly silence your cell phones, please, so as not to interrupt the transmission. And should you like to see past Gospels, you can log on to www.youtube.com/Becerra Miami. And maybe you're home and you want to get a little good feeling. Look at past Gospels in English and Spanish, Portuguese, and Portuñol. Today, we're going to start with the book from our dear and beloved Francisco Javier that we call Chico Javier, from the book Our Daily Bread at number 152. In what manner? What do you prefer? Shall I come to you with a rod of discipline, or shall I come in love and with a gentle spirit? This is Jesus speaking to us through Paul at 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 21. At times of fire with sublime inspiration, the apostle to the Gentiles addressed his followers with direct questions that may seem almost mean if taken only literally, but which entail a wonderful reality when seen through the immortal light. Vibrations of love and peace radiate in every Christian place. Jesus has never forsaken his faithful followers, no matter how far apart they may be on the terrain of interpretations. Selfless emissaries of heavenly devotion have spread their sanctifying assistance throughout all the epochs of humankind. History demonstrates this is an irrefutable fact. No century has ever lacked genuine missionaries of the good. Promises and revelations from the Lord reach the ports of knowledge in 1,000 ways. In order to hide their personal failings, therefore, disciples who have joined the evangelical ranks cannot claim that they are unaware of the gospel's objectives. Within the circle of their own responsibilities, each disciple has received the work plan to be carried out each day. If they run from the work and avoid bearing witness, they owe such an anomaly to their own inactive will. Thus, it is possible that a time will come in which the idle and incessantly begging disciple may hear the master personally and without any intermediaries, asking as Paul did, "Which would you prefer? Shall I come to you with a whip, or with love and a gentle spirit?" And so for reflection about today's reading. In today's reflection, Emmanuel mentions how Jesus has never abandoned his faithful followers, regardless of how they interpret his teachings. There's always been an abundant number of selfless emissaries devoted to Christ, delivering blessings and vibrations of love and peace to humankind. His promises and revelations have reached our doors in thousands of ways. We cannot hide our personal failings, claiming we are unaware of the gospel's objectives, as we have been given a work plan to follow. If we run away from it, then we owe any resulting suffering to ourselves. Which would you prefer? Shall I come to you with a whip, or with love and a gentle spirit? Now we ask that you kindly Sit comfortably, take a deep breath, and unite and feel the vibrations of our Heavenly Father, our Master and our Teacher, Jesus Christ, our spiritual guides and our mentors, our dear Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, our guardian angels, and those spirits that came today to assist us or to be assisted. And with those same loving thoughts, we thank them all for the ability to be able to be here listening to Jesus' gospel as interpreted through our doctrine. We thank all those workers, those incessantly divine workers that make it possible for us to come here and have that peace, that love, that kinship, and that tranquility that comes when we unite in His name. We also ask, dear Father, that our dear Marcello Netto be blessed and that he can give us that gospel in its purest, loving form, as he always does. We also ask, dear Lord, for his loving, kind, hardworking wife, and for all the Federation and all the workers of our beautiful doctrine. And all these things, dear Lord, we ask in Jesus' name. So be it. And today we have the blessing that we have our dear Marcello Netto, who's a worker of the doctrine. That's how he wants to be introduced, who's going to speak to us in a very special lecture entitled Seeds of Eternal Life, the Parable of the Sower. Welcome, Marcello.
Good morning, everyone. Always feel very blessed when I'm here, invited to share with you like a few points about this beautiful doctrine that touches us, touches our heart in a way that indeed it changes completely. For me, changed my life completely. I was trying to imagine how I would start this lecture and how I can address this passage of the Gospel of Matthew. This is on chapter 13. And the Gospel of Matthew brings too many parables. But that specific one invite us to be the sower, to do something extra, to receive the seeds that have been always available to each and every one of us, and to receive these seeds in such way that we never thought before. I'm going to read the parable, and I'm going to start to break down in small portions because the parable brings different kind of soils, and it shows the sower. The sower is in the ultimately representation is the Christ. The Christ always been giving us since the beginning of time the seeds all around the world, not only in the Christian format, but through too many messengers that spread this beautiful message of fraternity, unification, tolerance, forgiveness, and you will see each people spread around the world in different times. Missionaries trying to say exactly the same thing. And then we come the apex of this movement with this coming of Christ, transforming all these sayings in such a profound commandment that's the reason that we are at this moment in this very small ambience with our hearts willing to see something, to receive something, to absorb something. What exactly the parable of the sower brings to us? Let's read it together. And the parable of the sower Matthew. Actually, the parable is written on chapter 13, verse 1 through 23. But I limited the parable to 1 to 9. And it says on the Gospel according to Spiritism also, on that same day, Jesus, having left the house, sat down close to the sea, and a large crowd of people gathered around him. Therefore, he climbed into a boat and sat down, while the people remained on the shore. He then told them many things in parables, speaking to them in this way. Sower went out to sow, and as he was sowing, some of the seeds fell by the wayside, and the birds of the sky came and ate them. Other seeds fell upon stony places, where there was not much earth. They soon sprouted because the soil was not very deep. But when the sun came up, it scorched them, and since they had no roots, they withered. Still other seeds fell among thorns, and when they began to grow, the thorns choked them. Finally, some seeds fell on the good ground and produced a crop, some hindering 100 to 1, others 60, and others 30. He who has ears, let him hear. So let's try to make an explanation what exactly Jesus had to say to us. What kind of soil we are. We are actually soils. I can remember the first time that I get in contact with the Spiritist teachings. I went to a Spiritist center, and I was so amazed by the content of that information. I says like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, so profound. I want to get involved in this movement. I want to read a little bit more. I want to get in touch with all these books and just see how can I change my life. It doesn't mean that my life was like I was a conflicted man, but I was a feeling of emptiness, a hungry feeling, a thirsty feeling that I want something else, something to fulfill this anxious wish to do something different. Not that we are missionaries, because we are not. I'm talking in my case. And sometimes I say, like, well, if I can not messed up with my life, that is fine. And if I can paraphrase the words of Mahatma Gandhi, let's try to be the change that the world is expecting, the change that we want to see in the world. So we constantly try to change the world. We want to be the great missionaries, to modify everything, to be this man that speak in the public places and convert many people. Start with small steps. Let's work in the soil, which is sometimes the heart of men and women, that it's so anxious to see some transformation, a deep and profound transformation. When Jesus brought this parable, bringing these four types of soil, I can relate to one of the soils and see how I progress, how I evolve in my personal life. Let's see what is the first soil. The first soil sows some of the seeds, fell by the wayside, and the birds of the sky came and ate them. Hear therefore the parable of the sower. Whoever hears the word of the kingdom, but does not heed it, the evil spirit comes and takes away what had been sown in his heart. This is the one who received the seed by the wayside. Let's remember something. The seeds were always been available to all of us in the form sometimes of a book, sometimes of a friend, sometimes of circumstances in our lives that shake us up in a way that's for us to be awakened of something, maybe a change of course in our existence. I am not doing very well. I think I am the king of the world. I am the superman. I am the superwoman. No matter how the way that we interpret our existence, there's something much bigger and broader than our capacity to understand. I, in our spiritist centers, and I believe you guys have exactly the same. By the end of the lecture, we have something that we call fraternal assistance, a fraternal conversation, which is simply a sharing of ideas. We don't have the degree in psychology. We are not doctors, so we cannot give advice in this level, but we can share our hearts. We can share something that once was given to us by the gospel according to Spiritism, and say like, wait, calm down. Everything is in its right place. This shall this will shall pass. So wait a little bit. I know it's easy to say. It's very easy to say when you're not in somebody else's shoes. But this is the way that we learn that the time is very relative. And the way that we make this analysis, it's so interesting. I remember that I was here in one of the lectures, and I like very much mathematics. My degree is an engineer. So I don't know if you guys remember this. Fractions, we have the first number, remember this, see, Claudia can see, Claudia, remember, yes? When you have like a fraction, the number that goes underneath will be the division of the number that goes on top, right? So let's assume that we are struggling for several years, and this number we're going to put on top of the fraction. But since we are immortal spirits, we're going to live forever. The destination that God holds for us, it's something marvelous. So we have the number that goes underneath, the infinite number. Anything, no matter how many numbers of suffering that we have, that goes on top, when you divide it by infinite, it's equal to zero. So the moments that we suffer, it's very limited if you compare to the eternity. I know it sounds very philosophical. And when we are suffering, we don't want to know about mathematics. Of course not. But I can assure you, when we get in contact with the divine realm of life, calming our spirit, getting in touch with the gospel, reading a passage, coming to the center, it could be a church, it could be a temple, it could be anything that talks about be encouraged, everything shall pass. I assure you, something miraculously will change, and not miraculously by the word like per se, but it's going to be, we are going to be in tune with something else that it's going to become fulfilling our spirit. And even though the struggles and the obstacles that we are going through are enormous, I can assure you, you will find a source of strength inside of your heart that you never thought before. This happens to me. It could happen to you. And I can see that it's happened to anyone when we connect with something much bigger than us. So, this first soil, the wayside of the street, it's a very compacted soil. When you see a very compacted soil, nothing can go into the soil. If you throw the seeds, there's no way for the seeds get into the cracks, because it doesn't even have cracks of the seeds to get in and to flourish and to germinate. So that's us. When we are so immersed in material things, we don't pay attention to this immense amount of seeds that's been always available to all of us. This is the first soil. And then I when I said to you in the beginning, like, I see people and I see, for example, we had an example, I'm not going to mention his name. He came to our center. Oh man, good looking, very well dressed. He seems to be like, when you see someone, oh, this guy is a millionaire, a billionaire, someone with a lot of power, he was full of himself and he was watching the lecture. While we end the lecture, he came to me, grabbed by my arm, says like, can we talk a little bit? I says, yes, for sure. Then we went to a small room there. Please, how can I help you? And he started crying. Oh, what happened? What happened? I have everything. I have money. I have power. I'm very well positioned in my company. I'm the owner of the company. And I have a beautiful wife. I have everything. I don't know what's happening to me. Sometimes feelings of anxiety and depression, it's taking over my spirit. And I want to change. I don't know how can I change. And then we start the conversation. And he mentioned to me for many years and that's exactly the word that he says like, are you acquaintance of the gospel? From no, I'm not a religious man. But the way that he described how his heart was since that specific moment, he says like, my heart is just like a wayside of a street. It cannot penetrate anything, and I'm anxious. I want to be just like you. He says, no, don't be like me because I have a big belly. Be like you. So you can be yourself, but in a different version. Let's work on this. I am not going to change you, but you are going to change yourself. Coming. So this conversation took place, a few encounters, a few times that he came to the center, watching the lectures, participating in the study group. Now he is completely different. It's been like a year and a half. And now this man became someone completely different. Has a smile in his face. He has a purpose in life. And he understands the material possessions that he acquired are not like the end of his life. It's just the way that he's going to work through the final destination, which is to become a more spiritual person, to become someone that can love a little more, and to feel that we have much more to offer. And the acquisitions that we've been trying to acquire during the course of life are simply temporarily. I was in this morning reading and I was trying to see how I am going to start this lecture. And I felt like, how can I start to pass something that touches my heart to the audience of Bezerra de Menezes? And I says, well, let's try to start with a story, a personal story, and let's try to start with a case that you were a witness because you were the guy that that gentleman and speak to him, and give this example, that specific example. So that's what I wanted to say to you regarding this first kind of soil. But we have the other kind of soils too. We have the soil. Oh, sorry. This is something really interesting because on the book, Leon Denis brings on the book the problem of the translation in English is different than how we know in Portuguese. O problema do ser do destino. The problem of the being, the destiny, and suffering. Something like that, right? Claudia can help me out if I'm not saying. Grab a chair and sit right beside me. Yes. Very nice. Very nice. So Leon Denis brings us something really interesting. He says like, pain opens up deeper holes within the soil, which allows for the emergence of seedlings of virtues and beauty within our lives. When our soil, the soil of our hearts, are so compacted, that it's incapable to receive the water of the spirit realm, the seeds of the spirit realm. Sometimes, just like a plow, you know, a farmer when he uses a plow to open a few cracks on the soil so the seeds can go in. Pain is this kind of plow. It's a vehicle to proportion, to promote this kind of situation, and we can understand something better. Because when life is easy, the bank is full of money, I'm beautiful, I have fame, I have all the projection in the world, we don't pay attention to eternal things. We don't pay attention to divine seeds. We simply want this now. I want to be happy now. I want to have everything now. So even though if you have like someone to talk to you about like, okay, this is really good, but pay attention what really matters to your existence. What is the end of the road? Pay attention. What is your destination? That's right. That's why pain sometimes works as a profound and very powerful tool to open these little cracks in our soil and to allow the seeds to get in. And there's more. The other soil. We have the soil, the stony soils, seeds among the stones. The one who hears the word and receives it joyously, as soon as he bears it. Sorry, let me read it again. The one who hears the word and receives it joyously as he hears it. But he has no roots in himself, and it lasts only for a while. And when obstacles and persecutions on account of the word overcome him, he soon regards it as an object of offense and ruin. This is maybe me when I first got encounter of the Spiritist teachings. I went to the center, my soil, the soil of my heart, a little dirt, a little soil, but a few stones, a lot of stones. So the seeds get in, germinate. The roots actually get along with that very soil. If it germinates really quick because of the thickness of the soil, but when the sun comes, it means the testimonials, the obstacles that life will give us anyway. It doesn't matter if the life now it's so tranquil, so nice. More we know, we are getting more resources for the time when the winter of our life are coming. So when the sun comes and burns the leaves, most of us get away from the center. Says like, I'm not gonna go. I don't want to be part of this. More I know, more life gets difficult for me. And well, everybody here speaks Portuguese, but we have, this is English. There's there's a medicine in Brazil that we call Doril, Spirita Doril. Quando melhorou, sumiu. Well, I don't know how to translate this. Like, well, we get a little like better, and then we run away from this divine providence in the form of the center, in the form of the gospel, or anything. Like, it's really interesting, and it happens. This people who have this kind of soil comes to the center with this stony soil. They got so emotional. Oh my God, this is beautiful. Look at the message. It was directly to my heart. Ah, beautiful. When the tribulations, when the obstacles arrives, they disappear. They don't pay attention to this. It's really interesting. And on the book, The Consoler, Chico Xavier, through the mediumship of Emmanuel, through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, brings us something really interesting on question 332, because we don't know ourselves. We think we know ourselves, but in fact, indeed, we don't know ourselves. And Emmanuel brings exactly these explanations. this quote. As far as knowledge is concerned, where can we find man's greatest needs? And the answer is clear. We must state that man's greatest need is knowledge of themselves. It's still the knowledge of themselves because we don't know how we are. I don't know who I am. And that's right. When some circumstances, some kind of tribulations arise to us, many of us don't know how to react. But when we observe how we have the pattern of our actions, we can have a glimpse how I am, who I am, because I know people want to know I was a queen, I was a king, I was a slave, I was this, I was that. It doesn't matter. The past, thank God, we don't remember. But we can find in this lifetime a probability of our character based on this kind of analysis. On the question 919, Allan Kardec asked the good spirits, what is the practical way for us to become a better person? And St. Augustine answered, a sage in antiquity told you, know thyself. So knowing ourselves, as just Emmanuel mentioned to us, will can save us from many problems in the future because we know our reactions when we are subject to some kind of outside external input, external things that can happen to us. Why this is taking so long? Why humanity is taking so long to know thyself, to know themselves? And Emmanuel also brings why men been so slow in finding a solution for the problem of self-knowledge. Easy to explain, Emmanuel says, like only now have human beings be able to look within themselves, concentrating on themselves long enough to understand their innermost needs and the depths of their spiritual personality. Man's existence used to be summed up as their battle with external forces in such a way where they meant to create a harmony between nature and themselves. So in the past, we are so involved in physical aspects. We need to get the food out of the source, out of the dirt, out of the soil. The nature was inviting us to pay attention in our existence, our physical existence. But now we have this comfort of technology that can promote us, and we can have more time to dive inside within. The more technology we have, it seems we have less time because I see now we have iPads, iPods, blah blah blah. iPods doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, all this technology instruments that actually steals times from us. Other kind of soil, seeds that fell among thorns when they began to grow. The thorns choked them. He who receives the seeds among the thorn is the one who hears the word. But then the cares of the time and the illusions of riches choke the word within him, rendering it unfruitful. What does it mean? This is the third type of soil. We have enough dirt and soil to grow even the thorny plants. But, so we have thorns being grow over here, and we have the good plants, the good seeds growing over here. So what happened? It's a matter of choosing. It's a matter of choosing. Which one I am going to feed? The thorny plants, or the good ones? It's a matter of free will. There's an analogy that I'm sure you all know. Two wolves inside of our hearts. One is good, the other one is bad. Which one we want them to grow inside of us? Which one will grow inside of us? The one that we feed it, the one that we give them caring. So this is exactly the same. The thorny plants and the good plants. It's a matter of like choosing which one I am going to choose. this one or that one. And then we come to the fourth soil, which is our destination. The fourth soil is, finally, some seeds fell on the good ground. But he who receives the seeds on good soil is the one who hears the word, who heeds it, and who produces a crop, rendering 100 or 60 or 30 to 1. Because even in the good soil, you will see a gradation. You will see someone that can multiply 100 times the seeds. Others can multiply 60 times, and others 30 times. So we will see the sower always seeding the seeds of love. There's also a music like that, Tears for Fears. I remember this from the 80s. You remember? Yeah, see, the guy remembers, yes. Exactly. So, sowing the seeds of love that we receive according to the capacity to absorb these seeds, and going to this fourth kind of soil, the good soil, we can multiply this 60, 30, 100 times. Can you guys imagine Christianity without Paul of Tarsus? The seeds that was spread in that specific heart when he was Saul of Tarsus, when he stoned Stephen, Abigail's brother, and then he found out how Stephen forgave Saul of Tarsus. And then a few months later, on the road of Damascus, he had a glorious vision of the Christ, and he changed his life completely. That specific seeds that fell into that heart when he was Saul transformed him into Paul. And the seeds that germinate in his heart are fructifying until nowadays. And we have over 1.5 billion Christians in the world because of that. It's not only 30, not 60, not 100, billions of times. Now we receive this message. There's a beautiful movie talking about the story of Paul the Apostle, and it has one a beautiful scene when Paul of Tarsus was arrested in Rome, and Luke came to him to write it down, a few letters that he was dictating to the Christian community. And Luke was very disencouraged about a few facts, a few things, a few occurrences that took place in Rome. It was the time of Nero. And Nero was, you put fire in Rome. And Nero was blaming the Christians for this madness, putting fire on Rome. But we know it was Nero's that did the whole thing. And what happened is, because the feeling of anger, the Christians were used by the Romans, persecuted by the Romans, and used as human torches. They put the Christians there and put fire on the body. It was a horrible scene, something awful, terrible. Not only that, in the heart of the Christian community over there, in that very same heart of the Christian where Aquila and Prisca was working, a group of Christians were willing to change their life and their arms to fight against the Roman. And Luke says, went to the prison, talking to Paul, and says like, Paul, well, it might be like a revolution. Something bad is maybe it's happening outside because people are maybe willing to bear arms and to change, to promote like some kind of revolution here. And Paul says like, and what did you say to them? And he says like, well, I said that love is the only way. But he said in a way that he was not very well believing in that thing. And Paul find out, like, says, and you still don't believe in that, yes? And Luke says like, how can I believe in that? Narrow circles is a madness. This world doesn't know a thing about love. Widows, orphans, babies being dispatched, discarded in the street, bloods drains down the street. How come I can believe in this love? This world doesn't know anything about love. And then Paul says, like, and then you're gonna give up on everything that Christ said to us. He says, like in this the scene, like, why not? And then he mentioned the letter to the Corinthians. Love hopes everything, trusts everything. Love embraces everything, forgives always. And he described and mentioned the letter to the Corinthians. And then Luke became so amazed by the power of the vibration of his voice. And then in the scene is so beautiful. It says like, so write it down and send this letter to the Corinthians, this community. So these are the seeds that touches us in such a profound way that we never thought before. A week ago, Andrea, my wife, was giving a lecture at Deerfield Beach, in another center, Cardassian Society of, yes. I don't know if you were there. You were there, yeah. Talking to the children, the kids and everything. Exactly. And in a certain moment of the lecture, he pointed to a girl, 16 years old, 125 people. And he was talking, this is not something that we do. And she mentioned someone and pointed to one specific girl. And you, what's your name? And he mentioned something about the lady opened her eyes. And then that interaction took place in a way that the little tear fell from the face of the little girl. And then, when the lecture finishes, Andrea came to that girl and they developed some kind of conversation. And she felt encouraged by something that Andrea said to her. Okay, a few minutes pass. The president of the house, Marisa, grabbed Andrea by the arm, says like, I want to tell you something that you don't, it's amazing how spirituality works. That specific girl, 4 days ago, came to me talking about the possibility of suicide, to kill herself. She was very disencouraged by life. She's a beautiful girl and everything, but she was empty. And because of that, I guess you touch her heart in a way that we don't know. So it doesn't mean that Andrea is a saint, but the spirituality was guiding her, as the same spirituality can guide us, each and every one of us, to be a sower in the heart of men and women and to transform in such a way that we never thought before. This is something so beautiful. Somebody sent me a video. I'm not going to pass the video because of copyright issues. But this video is a story of someone that was very much inspired by a teacher. Let me try to explain exactly how it was. So it's a teacher, like 30 years ago, 20 years ago. The teacher in the classroom, a few friends. And actually, this is the middle of the story. So a wedding took place. And then two friends get along in that wedding. It says like, well, hi, how are you? Do you remember me? You were my teacher. And the guy says like, well, oh yes, how you doing? Very good, very good. Oh, I that day, do you remember that moment that you know that I became a teacher too? Oh, very nice. What inspired you to become a teacher? Ah, was that specific moment? I'm sure you remember. No, I don't remember. Tell me about it. Oh, remember how well we were there inside of the classroom, and I saw my brother, my friend, get like a wristwatch, a beautiful wristwatch, and I couldn't afford it. I wanted to have that wristwatch, and I know he put his watch inside of his pocket. You know the story, yeah? So I grabbed the watch. He didn't notice. I put it in my pocket. And then a A few minutes later, my friend noticed that the watch was gone, and he spoke to the professor, the teacher, like, well, my watch, my watch. And I know when I came to this classroom, my watch was here. I used to put my watch in my pocket. And then the teacher, you close the door. You ask everybody to line to face to the wall, close our eyes, and then you start like putting your hand, touching, trying to see which pocket was the watch. And then you found the watch inside of my pocket, but you didn't say a word. And you keep doing it as if you didn't find the watch. When you got the watch, you ask everybody to turn, to open our eyes. You gave the watch to the proper owner, the owner, and you didn't mention any word. You didn't said any word. And I understood the message, because if you show that I was the one that stole the watch, I would be ashamed. I would be destroyed. A despicable boy, a thief, a liar, whatever adjective. I will be like, my soul will be destroyed completely. But you never mention a word to me. That's why I got so encouraged to become an educator. This is a real educator is. Do you remember the story? It says like, I remember, but yes, but I don't remember it was you. How come you don't remember it was me? It was so a dramatic story. How come you don't remember it was me? Because I also was with my eyes closed. So this is kind of a seed that you throw and you never forget. This will impact the life of that boy, that man, for us to understand that we have moments, and sometimes fragile moments, but that specific moment did not characterize who we are. We are creatures of God, children of God. The destination of our existence, it's marvelous, it's beautiful. And one day, all these seeds that we've been receiving for centuries, for so many lives, are going to flourish in a way that we never thought before. I would like to close this talk with a passage of the Daily Bread of chapter 25 that says something so beautiful. Emmanuel brings exactly this. On the path, if harmful weeds occupy the soil of your heart, and if you have already received the heavenly principle, cultivate it devotedly, sheltering it in the garden of your soul. The human word may fail, but the word of the Lord is imperishable. Accept it and comply with it, because if you flee from the imperatives of the eternal life, sooner or later, the angel of affliction will visit your spirit, indicating new path to follow. Thank you so much. I know it's a very simple thought, very simple, very humble, but I enjoy being here. God bless all of us. Thank you so much. Let's do a final prayer. Dear Father above, we thank you so much for the moments that we had over here, gathering in your name, in the name of this love, and ask you always to bless everyone that are here in the true realms of life. We know that we still have a long way to go, but we know the assistance is always will be available to each and every one of us. Bless this house. Bless the sincere sentiments of each and every one worker in this beautiful place. asking always the protection for us to go overcoming the obstacles, because in the end, our destination will be bright. Thank you so much